Hello, I'm Matthew from LudoChrono, and today I'm going to give you an overview of Yggdrasil Chronicles. Yggdrasil Chronicles is a cooperative game set in Norse mythology in which you play the gods who try to avert Ragnarok. This is a game for 1 to 5 players ages 14 and up, and it plays for around 90 minutes per game. You can play either in separate scenarios or in campaigns, so I will cover that later. In this game, you are a Norse god from the mythology, and you try to avert Ragnarok by moving Nidhogg onto the Tree of Life space on the Book of Sagas. It is basically a game in which you try to survive by averting the different threats around the board. You will also be represented by a standee, and you will move your figure around the board, which is the Tree of Life, with its 9 areas, which are very different, and 3 stages, which are also a defining part of the game. But as you may notice, there are a lot of figures. For example, there is Loki, Fenrir, and they will all try to hinder you in many ways. So how do you play this game? Well, on each dashboard we also have a deck of cards, which is called a deck of threats, because on each card you will see that there is a threat. So for example, in this case, Zord. So before playing their turns, the players are going to collect one card, the top card of each of their decks, and place all of those cards onto the wheel of threats. Then the players are going to decide who takes their first turn. So for example, let's imagine that the players decide to play Odin first. So Odin is going to flip his card and place it onto the matching threat. So for example, in this case it's Nidhogg. If it is the first kind of that threat, nothing happens. If it would be the second, however, Nidhogg would be activated, which means that Nidhogg would move up 1 space on this, and this is how the players win. Then Odin would play his turn, we would move on to Freyr, we reveal Freyr's card, it is a Hell card, he plays his turn, then it is Thor, the god of thunder, we reveal his card, and then we have another Hell card. So we have another Hell card, we have to activate her. And Hell is a bit more involved than Nidhogg. So for the first thing that she will do is she will move up 1 space. Then she will rotate the world tree by 120 degrees. And then she would damage the active player by 1 hit point. This is one of the many ways to lose hit points in this game. So a lot of gods of threats will do several things to the board. They will add, for example, Zord will add fire giants onto this track, which will lower his strength. Jormungandr is going to move here and kill anonymous guys and boost Hell's strength. So we have to essentially go to Hell and kill undead, and so on and so forth. So you have to be aware that the threats work in various ways, and you have to handle them all at the same time. So I explained how the threats work. But I told you that after revealing a threat, the player would take a turn. So in this case, we are going to play Thor. What does a player do in their turn? They have actually 1 move, which is optional, and 1 action, which is as well optional. So the move that you can do is basically you can move around the stage of the tree you are on. If I am at the top of the tree, I have access to all 3 areas, but I can also ascend or descend. In this case, I can descend 1 level to Midgard. I may want to collect, for example, elves or Vanes here. So once I have performed my move, I will be able to perform a different thing, which is an action. So there are 3 types of actions. The first kind of action is taking the action from the place I am on. So for example, in this case, I would collect dice, which allow me to save myself from harm. And when I perform an action, I will have to look at the threats on my space or the allies, the other gods on my space. If I am alone on my space, or if there are threats and gods, I will perform the normal actions. If I am on a space with only threats, I will perform a less powerful action. If I am on a space with only gods, I'm going to perform a more powerful action. For example, in the case of getting dice, I would get more dice or less dice depending on the situation. So this is especially tense to handle because you have to coordinate. The second action I can take is fighting. So For example, let's imagine I can move here and I will be able to fight Hel, because I really want to send her back to Muspelheim here, because she's a problem here. So how do I fight? Well, I succeed. I win all of my fights because I'm a god. But that doesn't mean I am invincible, and I will take risks depending on the strength of the fighter. In this case, Hel on this gauge has a strength of 2. And this is especially important because she may deal 2 damage to me. However, I will roll dice to avert those damage. So for each shield, I will prevent 1 point of damage, I will have blanks which do nothing, and I will have partial successes, which I may turn into shields if I spend elves. I may also have veins, which are these additional dice that I can roll, but they are 1 use only. And before rolling the dice, if I had heroes, I could spend heroes to avert damage. So this is how we fight. And when I have rolled my dice, I may lose some hit points, but I will win and I will send Hel back to where she belongs. Also, last thing, but it is very important, if 2 threats are on the same space, for example, Zurt and Hel are here, they will ruin that part of the world tree, and they will make me unable to use the action on this space. So we will remove 1 bar from Fenrir's cage and place it here. And I will be able to perform a 3rd kind of action, which is healing the world tree, but it costs 2 hit points. If I do so, I will put that bar onto the cage of Fenrir again. So these are the 3 kinds of actions. Fighting, performing the actions, provided the space I am on is not ruined, or healing the world tree. And that's it. You have the player turn, so you will move and take an action, then it's the next player's. Once every player has acted, you are going to have another sequence, but if an enemy was activated, you're going to put the cards from the activation on the bottom of their respective decks, which means that you can foresee what is really threatful and what is kind of safe, and you will have to juggle with the threats that way. You'll win when Nidhogg is going to reach the Tree of Life space on the Book of Sagas, or you're going to lose if a god dies, or if a threat cannot perform their action. So that's how Yggdrasil plays in a nutshell. So this is a game that you can play either in the mode here, so this is a single game, but you can play it in campaigns, and the Book of Sagas is going to have a lot of different scenarios to play with the different gods of Norse mythology, and you also can improve and customize your characters to better further the experience. So that's it for Yggdrasil Chronicles. See you on Ludovox and have a good game. Bye bye!